The NFL draft is only days away, but the biggest story might not be who gets drafted. Teams are quietly preparing for blockbuster trades, contract standoffs, and shocking roster moves involving stars like A.J. Brown, Aaron Rodgers, and Dexter Lawrence. And one decision could completely change the league overnight. But what happens next could be even bigger than the draft itself. For years, the Kansas City Chiefs have looked almost untouchable. As long as they had Patrick Mahomes, it felt like they could survive anything. Bad receiver play, injuries, shaky protection, even losing stars in free agency. Somehow, they always found a way to stay on top. But this offseason feels different. For the first time in a long time, the Chiefs are entering a draft with real pressure and real holes across the roster. They lost both starting corners, including Jalen Watson, leaving a massive question mark in the secondary. Suddenly, a defense that was once one of the most complete in football has serious concerns on the outside. And then there is the offense. Yes, Mahomes is still Mahomes. Yes, Travis Kelce is still there. But Kelce is getting older, the offensive line still has protection issues, and the wide receiver room has never fully recovered since the days of Tyreek Hill. Xavier Worthy is exciting, but he is more of a speed threat than a true number one option. That is why this draft feels so important. Do they finally give Mahomes a polished receiver like Carnell Tate? Do they replace Kelce before it is too late? Or do they focus on the secondary and offensive line before everything around Mahomes starts to crack? Because for the first time in years, the Chiefs are not drafting from a position of luxury. They are drafting from a position of need, and if they get this wrong, the rest of the AFC could finally have an opening. But while Kansas City is trying to protect its dynasty, another contender may be preparing to tear apart its own offense. The Philadelphia Eagles keep saying the same thing about A.J. Brown. He is an Eagle. That is the line. That is the answer every single time. But the more they say it, the more people around the league seem to believe something bigger is coming. Because if the Eagles truly had no interest in moving Brown, they could shut the rumors down immediately. Instead, they keep leaving the door slightly open. And that is exactly why so many people believe this story is not going away anytime soon. The biggest reason is money. If Philadelphia traded Brown before June 1, they would take on more than $43 million in dead cap. After June 1, that number drops dramatically and becomes far easier to manage. That is why so many insiders believe if a move happens, it will happen later in the summer instead of during the draft. And then there is everything else. The sideline frustrations, the visible tension with Jalen Hurts, the reports that there may have been off-field issues between the two stars. Some fans believe the relationship has simply run its course, especially after another season full of awkward moments and frustration. Rumors claim the chemistry problems became impossible to ignore inside the building. At the same time, the Eagles have quietly been preparing for life without him. They added multiple receivers this offseason, including Hollywood Brown, Elijah Moore, and Dontavian Wicks. Officially, the team says it is only about adding depth, but some fans believe these moves are not a coincidence. And if Brown does get moved, one team keeps coming up over and over again: the New England Patriots. Reports suggest they remain one of the most aggressive teams monitoring the situation, hoping Philadelphia eventually lowers its price. But if the Eagles really do move A.J. Brown, the fallout in Philadelphia could be even bigger than anyone expects. The situation between the New York Giants and Dexter Lawrence is starting to feel like the kind of story that can completely change a franchise. Just a few months ago, Lawrence looked like one of the few untouchable players on the roster. He was supposed to be the face of the defense, the centerpiece around everything else was built, and one of the leaders expected to help usher in the new era under John Harbaugh. Now everything feels uncertain. Lawrence reportedly wants a new contract because the market around him has changed fast. When he signed his deal, he was one of the highest-paid defensive linemen in football. But now he has fallen far behind newer contracts, and he reportedly wants more guaranteed money before stepping back on the field. The problem is the Giants do not seem eager to give it to him. Talks between both sides have reportedly reached an impasse, and Lawrence has already skipped voluntary workouts while also requesting a trade. The Giants have even started talking with other teams to see what his market might look like before the draft. And that is where this gets dangerous for New York. Because if the Giants trade Lawrence before the draft, it changes everything about what they do with the 5th overall pick. Suddenly, defensive tackle becomes a much bigger need. Suddenly, the pressure on the rest of the defense becomes much bigger. And suddenly, a team that was already trying to rebuild its identity has to replace one of its best players. Some fans believe Lawrence could still bring back a first-round pick because of how rare dominant interior defensive linemen are. Others think his age, contract demands, and down season lower his value closer to a second-round pick. Either way, the Giants are running out of time to figure this out. Because if Dexter Lawrence is gone by draft night, the Giants may be forced into a move nobody saw coming. The New York Giants are heading into one of the most important drafts they have had in years, and it feels like everything could come down to one decision. Because this is not just another top 5 pick. This is the first draft pick of the new era under John Harbaugh, and whoever the Giants select could end up defining the identity of this franchise for the next decade. That is why there is so much pressure around the 5th overall pick. Some people believe the answer is simple. Take Jeremiah Love if he is available. He's explosive, physical, and can completely change an offense overnight. More importantly, he fits exactly what Harbaugh has always loved. Throughout his career, Harbaugh has built teams around powerful running games and dominant backfields. From his years with the Ravens to now taking over the Giants, he has always believed the quickest way to help a young quarterback is by giving him a dangerous runner behind him. And right now, the Giants do not have that. But there is another side to this debate. Some believe Harbaugh could go defense instead, especially if Caleb Downs is still on the board. Downs is viewed by many as one of the safest players in the entire draft. He can play deep safety, move into the box, cover tight ends, stop the run, and completely change the energy of a defense. Harbaugh has always loved elite safeties. He had guys like Ed Reed and later built around players like Kyle Hamilton. Some fans believe Downs could become that kind of player for New York. There is also the chance the Giants trade down entirely if they do not love the board. And that is what makes this so interesting. Every option changes the future of the franchise in a different way. But if the Giants make the wrong decision here, it could set the franchise back years before the Harbaugh era even truly begins. The Pittsburgh Steelers are running out of time, and somehow they still do not know who their quarterback is going to be. For months, the expectation was simple. Aaron Rodgers would make a decision early in the offseason, the Steelers would know whether he was coming back, and then they could build the rest of the roster around that answer. That never happened. Instead, the Steelers have spent weeks waiting while Rodgers continues to leave the door open without fully committing. At first, people thought they would get an answer in February, then it became March. Now the draft is only days away and Pittsburgh still does not have clarity. That is where this becomes dangerous. Because the longer Rodgers waits, the more complicated Pittsburgh's draft plans become. If he comes back, the Steelers can focus on protecting him, adding weapons, and making one final playoff push. But if he does not return, suddenly the entire draft changes. That is why the name Ty Simpson keeps coming up. Some people around the league believe Simpson is the second-best quarterback in this draft behind Fernando Mendoza. He is not viewed as a guaranteed superstar, but many scouts believe he has enough talent to eventually become a starter if he lands in the right situation. The Steelers hold the 21st pick, which puts them in a fascinating spot if Simpson starts sliding down the board. The problem is that Pittsburgh also has major needs at wide receiver, offensive line, and in the secondary. Some fans believe using a first-round pick on a quarterback would be too risky for a team that still wants to compete right now. Others think passing on a quarterback would only keep the Steelers stuck in the same cycle they have been in since Ben Roethlisberger retired. And Steelers fans are clearly getting tired of waiting. Some fans believe Rodgers is dragging the team along, while others think Pittsburgh should move on entirely and finally commit to a younger option. But if Rodgers keeps waiting, the Steelers may be forced into a draft decision they never wanted to make. The Houston Texans are officially out of excuses. For the last 2 years, they have built everything around C.J. Stroud, and for the most part, it has worked. He turned them into a playoff team, changed the culture of the franchise, and gave Houston its first true superstar quarterback in years. But last season exposed one major problem. The Texans still cannot consistently protect him. When Stroud has a clean pocket, he looks like one of the best young quarterbacks in football. He He is calm, accurate, and dangerous, pushing the ball down the field. But when pressure starts coming up the middle, especially in big games, everything changes. His footwork speeds up, the offense stalls, and Houston suddenly looks completely different. That is exactly what happened during the playoffs. Some fans believe the Texans lost that game before it even started because the offensive line had no answer for the pressure inside. That is why almost everyone expects the Texans to attack the trenches in this draft. The biggest needs are interior offensive line and defensive tackle. Houston still needs long-term answers at guard and center, and they also need more strength in the middle of the defensive line. Multiple reports suggest the Texans are expected to prioritize those positions early because they know protecting Stroud is no longer optional. The interesting part is that Houston could still be tempted by another weapon. Tank Dell is expected back after missing the entire 2025 season with a devastating knee injury, but there are still questions about how explosive he will look right away. Houston also has Nico Collins and added more depth at receiver, but some people around the league still believe the Texans could talk themselves into taking another playmaker if the right name falls. That is what makes this draft so important. Because Houston already has a championship-level defense. The only thing standing between the Texans and a real Super Bowl run may be whether they finally give Stroud the protection he has been missing. But if Houston gets distracted by another flashy weapon, they could make the same mistake all over again. There may not be a more fascinating player in college football right now than Kadyn Proctor. At first glance, he looks like a future NFL left tackle with freakish size and power. He stands 6'7", weighs over 350 pounds, and moves better than someone that size should be able to move. But what has really made him explode in popularity is everything Alabama started doing with him away from the offensive line. Because Proctor is not just blocking people anymore. Over the last year, Alabama has lined him up at fullback, wildcat quarterback, and even split him out wide at receiver in what they call the crispy package. The nickname came from the fact that he once got close to 400 pounds after eating too many Krispy Kreme donuts as a freshman. But now, after dropping a significant amount of weight, he looks quicker, more explosive, and far more dangerous with the ball in his hands. Reports say he is now playing around 350 pounds after once pushing close to 370 or even 400. That transformation matters because weight was always the biggest concern with Proctor. Some scouts loved his size and believed he could become a dominant left tackle. Others worried he was simply too big and could struggle against speed rushers or eventually have to move inside to guard. Some fans believe he is being overthought because players with his size and movement almost never exist. Others think the conditioning concerns are still real and could affect where he gets drafted. What nobody can deny is that he is one of the most unique players in this draft class. He allowed only 2 sacks last season, earned first-team All-SEC honors, and has become one of the most talked-about offensive tackle prospects in the country. On top of that, he can line up in the backfield and run somebody over in short yardage situations. And if Proctor keeps proving he can do more than just block, he may end up becoming one of the biggest steals in the entire draft.